Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this review of the Flysurfer TAO. This wing has been out on the market for a little while, and normally I wouldn't review a wing coming towards its replacement, but after my Duotone Float review there were a number of comments on that video asking for me to look at the Flysurfer TAO, so I thought I'd take a look. As always, my thanks goes to the Watersports Centre, who got this wing in from the UK distributor specifically for me to review it. Links for them are in the description. The Flysurfer TAO is described by Flysurfer as a lighter, faster, more balanced surf wing. It comes in sizes from 2.5 metres all the way up to 7 metres in 0.5 metre increments. It features a Dacron leading edge and strut and a ripstop canopy, so fairly standard materials and nothing overly technical on the materials side of things. The canopy is laid out in a square panel pattern and there is just one load bearing element on the rear of the strut, no trailing edge battens, no wingtip canopy reinforcement or panel cuts to support the wingtips. There is a simple doubling of the canopy material along the trailing edge to strengthen this area against stretch. The wing is a low aspect design in that the strut is quite long, with the canopy sweeping forward in an arc from the back of the strut, a little similar to a bat's wing type shape. We have two hard handles which are lightweight carbon with an EVA grip covering them. In terms of sizing they are very similar to a Duotone unit handle. We do not have any soft bumpers to the fronts of the handles and they are just hard plastic, so some care is required if your board is fragile, as an impact with this handle could cause damage. On the leading edge we have a large and relatively robust flag handle with a reasonable amount of stiffness. It has the usual soft pad behind it to protect against knuckle abrasion. Inflation is via two valves which are the same style as F1 wings, with a push button for air release and a cap to seal the button away. Inflation pressures are 8 psi for the strut and 9 psi for the leading edge, and our wing is the 5 metre variant or 5.2 metre variant, and pressures will of course vary for other wing sizes in the range. The wing does come with a Flysurfer wrist leash, but this was not provided on the demo wing, which was fitted with an ozone waist leash, so please ignore that in the video content. The canopy has a medium amount of canopy tension to the front and is loose towards the rear. The overall stitching and fit and finish is of good quality as you would expect, with my reservations being no trailing edge battens to stop trailing edge flutter, no wingtip canopy reinforcements and the hard handles with no soft buffers to protect the board or in fact yourself if you were to be hit by the handles. So there is some room for improvement here with regard to longevity of the canopy and protection of the rider or board from the hard plastic ends of the handles. In terms of weight, the wing comes in at 2.28 kilograms, which is very light in comparison to its peers. So let's get it on the water and see how it performs. Now if you've watched our wing reviews before, you know they follow a structure, and that structure is pumping onto foil, pump technique, low end and high end, stability, balance between the hands, gust handling, jibes, advanced jibes, tacks, jumps, flagging out, speed, backwinding, and then an overall summary and a talk about who the wing is targeted at. So let's get started with what's going on in the background here, which is pumping onto foil. In light wind you could pump onto foil with no special technique and the wing would align itself to the wind and allow an effective pump without too much trouble. The issue was that in ultra light wind this all fell apart and the wing just could not decide how to align itself with the wind, and trying to generate power was just ineffective. The ozone flow also had this characteristic, as did the Reading Supernatural that I reviewed last year. So overall I was happy with the performance, except in ultralight wind where it just didn't perform. So we can say we have reasonable low end on this wing unless it's ultra light wind, and then it becomes difficult to pump to generate forward speed. For high end, I found the TAO to be a relatively stable wing. It pulls forward nicely, it doesn't move around too much in gusts, and the balance on the hands front to back is almost neutral with just a little bit extra pull on the front hand. I didn't find it a particularly fast wing, with it delivering relatively normal speeds that I would expect from most freeride wings. When it comes to normal jibes, I found the TAO was relatively compliant. It has that long strut which makes the wing feel larger than its square meter size. It rotates easy enough, but it didn't give me the feeling of a lightweight, playful wing. I think the long strut just makes it feel larger, so everything felt like I was using a bigger wing than a 5 meter. In Heineken jibes, it felt like there was more swing weight in the wing than there should be, and it didn't flow that nicely through the jibe. In race jibes, it was a little reluctant to flip nicely without me having to drive it a bit more into the wind to get a wind assisted flip up. The playfulness that I was hoping for just wasn't apparent. Once again, I think this is the low aspect design and the long strut playing a part. Coming on to tacks, the TAO had a tendency to want to fly overhead, and I had to adjust my technique slightly to get it to fly on its side through the tack the way I like to do them. The wing does exert a little negative pressure, or pushes downwards if you do an overhead tack. It was compliant on the toe side for tacks, but I had much less success with hillside tacks where things needed to happen a lot more quickly, and it felt like the TAO didn't meet well with my preferred technique, so I had quite a few failed tacks on the hillside. When it comes to jumps, this was an area I really liked with the TAO. It jumps really nicely, generates a good amount of lift from the wing, and also provides a lot of control and stability whilst you're in the air for soft landings. This was surprising for me, as this is touted as a wave wing, and I wasn't expecting it to be quite so accomplished when it came to jumping. Now we come on to flagging out, and with the TAO being a wave wing, I was expecting some good results, especially given how stable it was when I tested it flagged out on the beach. Now, a bit of a disclaimer here, where I sail does not get any groundswell, so we need good wind to get surfable waves, and when I'm testing a 5 meter, we are usually well overpowered for a 5 meter by the time decent swell arrives. So you can see here I'm having to do a bit of pumping and work to keep the swell working so I can stay flagged out for longer. Unsurprisingly, the TAO is super stable when flagged, to the extent that it just didn't move at all, not even to self-level itself. I had to twist the flag handle to make it level out. As you can see here, it was flying on its side rather than just leveling out when I put it onto the flag handle. A different example of this is if you put the wing on the water on a long leash. This was a good 15 knot plus day and the wing just doesn't move. As I said previously, it tends to push downwards in the flag position, and so when on the water like this, it has no tendency at all to want to fly upwards or flip over. Something I do want to mention is what happens when you try to push high upwind. The TAO was not too keen on this, and I can get better upwind angles on other wings. What you feel when you try to push very high into wind is the wing starts to backwind. It feels like a buffeting or sudden loss of power, and then you get some small negative pressure from the wing. Lastly, we come to backwind riding, and the TAO was actually quite effective at this. It has some looseness to the rear of the canopy, and this allowed the wing to fill a little when backwinded and generate some good power, which is harder to achieve from a very tight canopied wing. I did need to be a little careful when backwinded, as the long strut meant that there was a little more scope for getting pushed off the board by the wing in gusts. Overall, it was much easier to maintain speed backwinded than some other wings, particularly those with tighter canopies. Let's try to summarise this, as this wing was a really mixed bag of results. So for pros, it flags out really nicely, it backwinds well, it's stable when powered and nicely balanced, and it jumps really well. For cons, it doesn't go upwind that well, tacks are mediocre, jibes and advanced jibes, you just don't seem to get the benefit of playfulness from what is a very light wing. So who is this for? Well, firstly, if we look at it from the freeride perspective, then I probably wouldn't pick this wing for myself unless I was doing a lot of jumping where it's very good. For freeride, it's not overly playful, the tacks are okay but not best in class, and I think the long strut and low aspect design just doesn't sit that well with more advanced jibes, and yet it backwinds really nice. It's hard to recommend this for anything but a freerider who jumps a lot. For wave riding, again it's a bit of a mix. You often get shielded from wind in waves, so not being able to get it to pump in ultralight wind may result in some less than fun times in the impact zone. That said, once you get on a wave and flag it out, it's ultra stable and flies really nicely in the flag position. It doesn't cut up wind as high as other wings I've used, but on the flip side of that, it's nice and stable when powered, and it isn't heavy for when you get skunked and have to ride back holding up the wing's entire weight. Usually when I get to a summary, I know exactly where to go and who to recommend the wing towards, but in this instance it's a bit confusing. Yes, it flags out great, and if that's what you value the highest, then this may be something you like and would value as your wing of choice. For me, I like a more rounded product with more string to its bow, and whilst the TAO shone in a few areas, there was also quite a few gaps, and that makes it hard to recommend for anything other than your absolutely dedicated wave sailor or someone who's into jumping. Okay, that's it for this review. Once again, I'd like to thank the Water Sports Centre for getting the TAO for me to review, and I've put their links in the description. That's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next video.